Friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too, because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. Raised fist medium dark skin tone. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. The late afternoon sun was a benediction of gold, painting long, defiant streaks across the Chicago pavement. Director Julian Vance, a man whose stillness was a form of power, emerged from the federal building. A black man, tall and meticulously dressed in a tailored charcoal suit. He carried a slim leather briefcase. There was a quiet, unshakable authority in the way he moved, every step deliberate, every glance a practiced observation, not an act of paranoia. For 2 years, he had been the FBI director, the culmination of a decades-long climb through the Bureau's ranks. But today, he was just a man leaving a low-profile meeting, alone. No motorcade, no agents, just the quiet click of his Cadillac Escalade's lock. He was about to open the driver's side door when a voice, loud and full of brash confidence, shattered the calm. "Hey, back away from that vehicle." Julian turned calmly, a single eyebrow raised. A white police officer, mid-30s, with a stiff buzz cut and a chest puff of bravado, was storming across the lot. His hand was a tense knot hovering near his taser. "You deaf or just playing dumb?" The officer barked, his voice laced with immediate hostility. "Step away from the vehicle. Now!" Julian's composure was a shield. "Can I help you, officer?" "You sure can." The cop sneered, now just a few feet away. "By putting your hands where I can see them and getting away from that car right now." Julian didn't flinch. "This is my vehicle." "Sure it is," the cop scoffed, eyes narrowing. "'Cause a brother in a suit walking up to an Escalade parked outside a federal building ain't suspicious at all." A slow sigh escaped Julian. He carefully set his briefcase on the car's roof and reached into his inner jacket pocket. "Hands out of your pockets," the cop roared, his taser now in his hand, pointed directly at Julian. "You reaching for a weapon?" "No," Julian replied, his voice a steady counterpoint to the officer's rising aggression. "I'm reaching for my credentials." It was too late. The officer surged forward, a whirlwind of motion. He grabbed Julian's arm, twisted it violently behind his back, and shoved him hard against the car. The hollow thud echoed across the nearly empty lot. Julian grunted with the impact, but didn't resist. "Officer, you're making a serious mistake," he said, the words strained but clear. "Oh, I doubt that." The officer sneered, yanking out a pair of handcuffs. By now, a couple on the sidewalk had stopped, their phones already raised, becoming digital witnesses. One of them yelled, "He didn't do anything. That's his car." The cop ignored them, snapping the cuffs onto Julian's wrists and pushing him toward the hood of the SUV. Just then, a black sedan screeched to a halt, tires singing on the asphalt just yards away. The door flew open, and Agent Marcus Thorne, a field supervisor, leapt out. "Stand down," he yelled, his voice cutting through the tension. "That man is your boss." The cop froze for a fraction of a second, his brain struggling to process the words. "What?" "Take your hands off him now," Marcus commanded, his own badge already in his hand. But the officer, caught between bravado and shock, didn't move. Not until two more agents spilled out of the sedan, their weapons drawn but held low and steady, ready for anything. Julian turned his head calmly, the cuffs glinting. "I tried to tell him." "Uncuff him immediately," Marcus ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. The officer's face went red with a mixture of shame and disbelief. "You're telling me this guy is FBI?" Marcus stepped closer, his voice cold as a winter wind. "That guy is Julian Vance, director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Congratulations. You just assaulted the top law enforcement officer in the country." The officer fumbled with the cuffs, his hands shaking as he finally released Julian. Julian rubbed his raw wrists, turning to face the man. "If this were anyone else," Julian said, his voice a low hum, "you'd be throwing them into the back of your cruiser right now, wouldn't you?" He paused, letting the silence stretch. "What did you think? That a black man in a suit near a nice car must be a thief? That violence was the best way to confirm a license plate. The crowd of bystanders had grown, their phones still rolling, capturing every moment. Marcus stepped in, taking control of the scene. "We'll take it from here, sir." Julian nodded, his eyes fixed on the now shaken officer. "Get his badge number and call internal affairs." "Sir, please," the officer stammered, his bravado gone. "This doesn't have to." "It already happened." Julian cut him off, "and it will be handled professionally, legally, and publicly." He retrieved his ID from the roof of the car and calmly opened the door. As he slid into the driver's seat, he delivered a final, stinging line without looking back. "Next time you approach someone with suspicion, try asking questions before you use force. That's the difference between being a cop and being a criminal with a badge." He shut the door. The Escalade's engine purred to life, a quiet roar of authority. As Julian Vance pulled out a lot, the officer, Kyle Jensen, stood frozen, surrounded by agents, cameras, and the sudden public wreckage of his career. By nightfall, the video had spread like a digital wildfire. The footage, captured from multiple angles, showed everything. Jensen's aggressive shouting, the violent takedown, the moment of revelation, and Julian's calm, deliberate words. Across every social media platform, headlines blazed. FBI chief assaulted by local cop outside courthouse. He thought he was a suspicious black man. Turns out he runs the FBI. Cop in hot water after mistaking FBI director for criminal. Kyle Jensen's name trended for all the wrong reasons. Meanwhile, in a quiet federal building on the outskirts of D.C., Julian Vance sat in his office. He had a warm cup of tea and a coal fire in his eyes. He wasn't a man given to public outrage. His power had never come from yelling. It came from action. That night, he drafted a memo that would ripple through every law enforcement agency in the country. The next morning, Officer Jensen was summoned to internal affairs. He arrived still shaken, his uniform from the day before looking rumpled. Sweat clung to his collar. The waiting room was a sterile, silent box. When his name was called, he stepped into the boardroom and froze. Seated at the head of the table was Director Vance himself. Julian didn't stand. He didn't smile. He just said, "Sit down." Jensen did, eyes lowered, unable to meet the man's gaze. "You know who I am now?" Julian asked. "Yes, sir." "I didn't need a title to be treated with respect," Julian said, his voice a low, commanding presence. "No one does. But you didn't stop to ask. You didn't speak. You acted on what you assumed." Jensen tried to speak, but Julian cut him off. "You thought being black and near a nice car meant I was stealing it. In a suit, outside a federal courthouse. You didn't even check the plates before you grabbed me." Jensen said nothing. Julian folded his hands on the table. "You're suspended indefinitely pending review. You may also face federal charges. There are investigations underway." "Please, Director Vance," Jensen's voice cracked. "I made a mistake." "No," Julian said. "You made a choice." He slid a folder across the table. "And that choice has consequences." Inside were photos of other cases, black men profiled and brutalized. Many hadn't been so lucky. Some were in comas. Some were buried. "Every time someone like you does what you did," Julian said, his voice like steel, "you stain every uniform in this country. You cost us trust, and you make it harder for the good ones to do their jobs." Jensen was speechless. Julian stood. "You're dismissed." As Jensen was let out, Julian turned to his assistant director. "Get the press ready. I'm giving a statement today." That afternoon, the press room at FBI headquarters was a buzzing hive of anticipation. When Director Vance stepped to the podium, a silence, heavy and complete, swept through the room. He didn't speak from notes. "I was profiled and assaulted yesterday," he began, his voice ringing with a quiet, undeniable truth, "by a man who wears the same badge I swore to protect as sacred. I was profiled not because I was dangerous, but because I was black." Murmurs rippled through the room. He raised a hand. "I wasn't the first. I won't be the last. But I have something many don't. Power. And I'm going to use it." He outlined a new nationwide initiative for mandatory de-escalation and bias training across all federal partner agencies. He announced a zero-tolerance policy on racial profiling, mandatory auditing of body camera footage, and a new federal task force led by his office to investigate civil rights violations in local policing. A reporter raised a hand. Director Vance, what do you say to critics who claim this is an overreaction? Julian leaned into the microphone. Ask me that again, he said, his gaze sweeping the room. When it's your father, your brother, your son, or you? The room was silent. He stepped down. And just like that, the man who had been shoved against a car 24 hours ago became a symbol not of weakness, but of reform, of balance, and of true justice. A week later, Kyle Jensen officially resigned. His badge was turned in. His name was removed from the department roster. But what lingered most was the image now burned into every training screen across the country. A man in a suit, his face calm, his words deliberate, saying, "You thought I was a suspect. You didn't realize I'm the one rewriting the system you work for." Because Julian Vance didn't just rise to power. He reminded the world what true authority looks like.